please make sure you speak into your mics.
Okay, Kim? JJ? Michael? Paul?
Present.
Dana?
Here.
Brian? Ivy? Mary? Andrew? Joel? Jim?
I'm here.
Rocky?
Here.
Brian Hogue? Okay. Nicole?
Present.
Monica?
Here.
And Kevin?
Here.
Great, thank you. So the first order of business will be to review the agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the agenda as written? Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as written? Okay, and a second?
Second.
All right, and then all in favor say aye or raise your hand in the teams.
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. And has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes as written?
I move to adopt the minutes as written.
And a second?
Rocky, you have your hand up. Do you have something to add?
No, I was just taking it down. Thanks. I just caught that. Sorry.
Do I have a second to approve the minutes?
This is Rocky. I'll second him.
Thank you. And then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Next, we're going to review public comment. Within your packets, we did have some public comment that you are free to review on your own. I'm also going to open it for 10 minutes of public comment. I would cap each person speaking at 3 minutes. After public comment, we are going to discuss how we want to give the public the most opportunity to share their thoughts, opinions, questions. So that'll be a separate discussion point, but for now, we're going to do 10 minutes with a 3-minute cap for each individual. So I would like to open it up at this time. If there's anybody who would like to speak.
Please remember, if you are on the line and are trying to speak, you may be muted.
I'm not seeing anybody. Is there anybody coming up in any chats or anything?
No.
Okay.
We do. I will note that we do have 3 members of the public tonight: Marissa Jacobs, Dina Eaglestone, and Dina Earhart.
Perfect. Thank you. Brandon, I see that your hand is raised. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I would just like to say thank you to everyone that has participated thus far in being a part of the Grabhorn ad hoc committee. I think that it's really crucial that our community has a voice in this process. And so I think that it's a real good opportunity for our community to show how community engagement can be a good model and a valuable model. And so I hope that each and every one of you bring the spirit of this process into the outcome that you deliver to City Council. I think that that will be a crucial step in ensuring that each and every one of you bring your own unique expertise to the table, but also are representing the goals of the community as a whole. So with that, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate all of your time and efforts in this process. So with that, I hope you all the best and look forward to seeing the outcomes that you produce.
Thank you, Brandon. Do I have anyone else who would like to speak? Deanna or Dina? Go ahead.
It's Deanna. You were correct. So my name is Deanna Earhart, and recently the reason I'm here tonight is that I had put out an inquiry as to who to talk to, and apparently this is the committee. I am a mother and of daughters, and I am part of the softball community. And what I've noticed is I had seen, things on Facebook and what have you that stated that one of the things that you, as the committee, were possibly considering is softball fields in the new property. And I wanted to let you know that there is a softball community out here who absolutely supports that for our girls. Currently, the only softball area that we have is on school property, and therefore we are, when we want to play, it's up to the schools to let us, let us in, and we have to, follow their rules, etc. Whereas the boys get this beautiful field at Veterans Park, and they don't. When the schools were on lockdown, they still had access to their park, etc. And so I just want to make sure that that there's a softball community out there that really is hoping that you don't bench that idea, because it's just girls and it's just softball, and that there is a community of parents out there that have girls who really would like to see something for the girls instead of always just for the boys.
Thank you, Deanna.
Uh-huh.
Do I have anyone else who'd like to speak? Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, essentially just a quick question. I'm one of the volunteers representing particularly the dog park in the community there. I'd be interested in knowing who the other volunteers are that were representing other areas that had been invited.
We can take that. Actually, that would be something that we can discuss.
Add that to the agenda if you choose.
Absolutely. I actually think that would be great because tonight we're going to break out and we're going to create small groups. And so we were going to begin to have that discussion of who would like to be in which small group. So we can have that conversation a little bit later, but absolutely. Okay, last call for anybody who'd like to speak. Okay, at this time, I'm going to move on for the discussion of how we want to handle public comment from this point on. We have a lot of information to cover over the next several sessions. So I want to make sure that we have ample time to have the discussions that we need to, while creating ample space for the community to share their thoughts, concerns, and questions. So I am going to present 3 different options for us to vote on to decide how we would like to manage public comment from now on. And if anybody has any a 4th suggestion that they would like to throw in for a vote, I'm perfectly willing to hear it. So the first option would be that public comment is in written form only, and then we have it to read at each meeting. The second option is exactly how we just had it. We have 10 minutes with a 3-minute cap per individual. And the third option would be a separate session where all the public comment is held at that point, and we have an hour-long opportunity for the entire community to speak and share their thoughts. So before we go on to a vote, I want to take a minute to see if anybody else has any other suggestions for public comment. Okay, I don't see any hands, so let's move to a vote. How many, who would like the option of written public comment? Okay, I am seeing 3 hands. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but some of us are non-voting members. And I would help if that distinction is made when you're doing
You
these.
do have a vote. Every member seated on this committee, all 15 members, do have a vote. That would include the members from the community groups.
Not what I had been told. Thank you.
So with that, anybody who is a part of the ad hoc as a whole has a vote. Okay. All right, for the next option of 10 minutes with a 3-minute cap per person. And if you voted last time, if you don't mind putting your hand down. And then for the final option of a separate forum for the community to attend and speak to for approximately 1 hour. So we got
This is Paul on via telephone. Can you put me in for that one, please?
yes. Okay, I'm seeing 3 for I'm getting 3 for each group. 4 for the public forum. Okay.
3 for option 1, 4 for option 2, and 4 for option 3. There were some members that didn't vote on anything.
Okay. All right. So what we'll do, we had 4 for the 10 minutes and 4 for the separate forum. So what I'd like to do is, if go again for the 10 minutes versus a separate forum. So, and please, if you're a voting member, please raise your hand for one of the options. So again, we'll vote for the 10 minutes. Oh. I'm seeing 2. Is that what you're seeing? Okay. And then for the separate forum.
Paul Fitteridge votes for separate forum, please.
Thank you. Okay, I am seeing 6 people for the separate forum. Right, motion to adopt. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to adopt that we are planning to have a separate forum for public comment. So do I have a motion to adopt?
I move to
So
adopt.
I have just a quick question on that. So what you're saying, and then if somebody wants to ask outside of that forum, we're going to tell them no. That's what we're voting on, right?
So go ahead.
In terms of this being a public meeting, we have to accept written public comment. This would be the alternative option so that people can actually speak to the committee while preserving the committee's time. And that's kind of what the debate is about, is how to best handle the time.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt the motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
And then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the homework review. So it was pretty extensive. And I think this would be a very good opportunity for people to begin to discuss where what kind of brought them in to join, and some of the highlights that they found for through the public survey. So we'll spend about 10 minutes kind of discussing this. I do want to put a cap just to be mindful of time, because we do still have a bit more to cover. So did anybody have when they were reviewing the public survey, the floodplain, the original GPAC, the original Grabhorn parcel plan, thoughts, concerns, questions?
I did have just one thought. My name is Kevin Chavez. For those of you that aren't on the web and phoning in, just one question I had is I did see that the parcel was bought almost a year ago. And a majority of it does look like it's in the floodway. And I was just wondering why or how the city was interested in buying that piece of land with so much of it being able to be inundated with water. I do understand that it doesn't make suitable for housing development, but to kind of carry that, I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if there's someone who can answer that here, but that was just a curiosity I had.
Hi, Kevin. This is Hugh White, program analyst with the city. So I think I've got at least a general answer to your question. And it is, as long as we're talking, not a structure, let's say a field, a trail, as far as I know, a parking lot, a playground, those sorts of things are okay in a portion of the floodway. Anything that's an actual structure that's enclosed has to meet a certain building code threshold. That's about the extent of my knowledge. if you'd like, I can get a more detailed response for you and send that out to the committee.
I would like to note that open properties in the city of Scappoose are hard to come by. That would make appropriate places for parks. That was mentioned as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Joel, do you have a comment?
I think I can help with that. The floodway is sacrosanct in terms of putting any kind of structural encroachments on it. So you can't put any kind of abutments in it, but literally you can't put anything in there that's going to impede the water flow. In the 100-year floodplain, the area outside of that, you can do all kinds of things, trails, fields, and so forth. You can even build structures, provided you have a mitigation of flow through for that structure, but that's almost impossible to do. So the reason the city bought this property was it was ideal for a park and not so much for anything else. So if that answers the question, that might help.
Thank you, Joel. I wanted to speak to a little bit as to how we got here and why and how this group was formed. So Parks and Rec Committee has been around for a couple years now. I think I've been on it for a little bit over 4 years, and it started a little bit before that. And this was a really good opportunity when we saw the layout of the new park, where we had a lot of needs. We don't have a lot of we have a lot of needs as a city, and I think that's clear when you're looking through the survey results. That there's a need for a pool. There is a need for soccer fields. There's a need for softball fields. People want more walking trails. People want access to nature. People want variety in their parks, and they want benches. And but there aren't a lot of open land opportunities. So when looking at the park, there were so many options. And it appeared that there was a lot being put into the park that may or may not suit the community. And so when a lot of people began to voice their thoughts and concerns, this became an excellent opportunity for us to really begin to involve the community. And that's what's so exciting, as so many people have, like in the public comments, in both the written and people speaking, have really spoken to how exciting it is to begin to bridge this gap between what we have between the city needs, between the city's land purposes, or the land purchases, and the needs of the community. So I do want to, as we are listening to public comment, as we are reviewing all these surveys, I mean, it's just perfectly clear that there's so many opportunities for this parcel. And so I hope that everybody comes here excited to hear the feedback that everybody has, because it's very important. And people are passionate about these things that are happening in their small, quaint town, and also excited about the opportunities that it can bring them. That's at least that's how I felt when I was reading through all of the survey responses today. Even with the names that people had suggested for the parks, they were passionate about that. The ideas that they were throwing out, it's this area means something to them. So I hope that's something that rings true to everybody as they're reading through this. And I just wanted to say that because I know the first session was a bit formal with as much information that we need to cover. But I do just want everyone to rest assured that our goal is to hear the community, and we're taking large strides to be able to have access to that. And this is kind of a pioneering opportunity to be able to bridge the gap between the city and then the volunteer representatives of the Parks and Rec Committee and the community at large. Those are my thoughts. If nobody else has any comment, any more comment on the homework that we reviewed, I'd like to move on to small groups and discussing who will be a part of the different small groups and our plans for those. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to speak to?
Sorry, I realize I'm talking a lot. I do have something that just came across my mind. Earlier, we had made a motion to accept the formats for how comments from the public are to be received.
Correct.
And I thought of one really interesting way we could, or maybe we consider, is having physical installments on either the parcel or some of the surrounding parks, where people are using them and are present, and as a way for them to write on it with chalk, with whatever, what they want for this park, right? As a way to one, provide a little bit of information or knowledge about this park and what's going on, and two, to provide some input. And just with what you had said of like how we got to where we are, just because of the comments that we have seen so far, I think it would just be a great archival exercise for the community too, to really show how the city is really seeking public comments. But it's also a real great way to just capture this moment in time. And I know we have the 100-year celebration, and that's just something else that we can look towards, right? Like this, what we're doing here is really unique, and I think it's fantastic that we have this committee to be able to provide some direction for the conceptual plan. But I would like the public to be heard as much as possible, and probably look at innovative ways to do that. And by innovative, I don't mean just like social media, like physical installments where public can actually input their comments or concerns.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I think, and actually, I believe that Shedco in St. Helens had some sort of installment where they had like a board and lines on it. And
Right.
yeah, so I can definitely envision that. I think that's a great idea.
So for the other community committee members, the name or the project you can reference is Candy Ching. She did a I Wish This Was project.
Yes.
And if you just Google that, it kind of gives a really quick synopsis over what she did and how she got the community engaged, but really had momentum behind it. And
Great,
anyway,
thank you.
yes.
Jim, you have a comment?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea to put something out in public where the folks using the park are going to be giving them an opportunity to comment. I don't know how well a board will do with the kind of weather we have around here, but I mean, even a suggestion box. But one of the thing I think of as an addition to that would be a sign or placard or some kind of explanation posted at the same place, referencing public comment and the fact that the committee is accessible to that, as well as leaving comments in that specific forum, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are fantastic ways, and that is really our goal, is to engage as many people as possible. Monica, go ahead.
There we go.
Monica, you might be on mute. We're not hearing you.
Oh, sorry. I guess I hit it twice. I was just saying, I really support that idea of having a suggestion box or a board. Those seem like really accessible to people that would be coming to the park. Even kids might put something down and stick it in the box or put it on the board. And I just think it's going to be really important how we collect all that information and analyze it and get everything recorded and have a way of using it effectively.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I am going to move into the small groups. So what I'd like everyone to do, so the small groups that we are going to break down into are going to be 3 different categories. The amenities, so dog park, softball fields, soccer fields, and then they're reading the surveys. There's probably about 5 other additional things that people found to be a high priority. So we will have a few members of the group in that category. We will have a few members of the group in the watershed. The amenities small group is going to be led by myself. We'll have another group that is the watershed that will be led by Dana. So that will be all things regarding the creek and surrounding features. And then we will have a group that is road and pool. That will be led by Kim Holmes. So each group will have like about 4 to 5 members. And we will meet outside of here to really begin to break down the things that we are going to need to learn, understand, hear from the public to go forward. So an example for park, for the amenities that I was working on today, getting the survey feedback from people, concern about the seatings, concerns about not having enough soccer fields, concerns about speaking to Deanna, concerns that female softball players don't have enough access to their field. Those are all things that we're going to break down and begin to, and then the dog park as well was a very prominent feature in the surveys. So those are the things we're going to need to break down. How much space do we need? What parts of the community need access? What times of the day are they going to need access? How is this going to impact the park at large? And so those are the main goals outside of here. We are going to take that information and we'll present it at the next meeting, and then we'll begin to build up for the presentation to City Council. So I'm going to have each member, starting with Jim in the corner. I'm going to have you unmute and then tell me what brought you here, because I want to make sure that everybody gets put within the group. And actually, if you don't mind just sharing your preference, I do want to make sure that it is nice and even. So if somebody could be flexible, let me know. But if you could let me know what brought you here and what group would be your preference, and I'll start with Jim.
Yeah, obviously, as a representative of the dog park, I'd lean toward amenities. I am a former member of Scappoose Dog Owners Group, Scappoose DOG, which is the nonprofit that disbanded about 1.5 years ago after essentially building the dog park. And I'm a user. I know a lot of users of the dog park. It is the single most used feature at Veterans Park all year round in all kinds of weather. And the people that use it consider it very valuable. Those of us that are dog owners and dog lovers obviously understand that. So that's why I'm here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Michael.
Here, I'm the part of the Parks and Rec Committee. I lean towards the road and pool, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah. I lead toward the road and pool as well.
Thank you. Brian, are you here yet? I didn't see him come in. Okay. Let's go Brian Hogue. Are there either of the Brians here? Ivy? Mary?
Yeah, hi. I am interested in being part of the road committee or group.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, hi. So I'm a professor of public health at University of Portland and an epidemiologist for the county. So I'm just looking out for the health of the local residents. I'm okay if there's too many people in the pool and road. I'm okay with amenities or wherever I can look out for the health of as many community members.
Thank you. Rocky?
Thanks. So my background, what got me involved in this is I am the president of the Scappoose Soccer Club. So we have a little bit of an interest in being a part of this as a club and as an individual as well. I live close to veterans. So my goal would be to be on the amenities to bring some value that I think that we represent 500 families, both boys and girls, ages 4 to age 14. So it's kind of what I'd like to do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Nicole?
Was that Nicole?
Nicole, yes.
Yeah, well, as the president of the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council, I feel like our perspective could be applied to any of the groups. I'm happy to float as needed.
Great, thank you. Monica?
Monica? You said Monica?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm here representing the neighborhood. I live in the neighborhood, and after the fence was partially removed, I live even closer to the park, so to Veterans Park, that is. I'd be very interested in the amenities, but also in the watershed. I think there's a lot of opportunities for learning and awareness for the watershed, and just amenities as well. I have 3 small children who are going to be using the park a long time, so there's a lot of things that I think we could use the park for. So those would be both my preferences.
Great, thank you. And Kevin?
I am part of the park user at large, I believe it's what it was called. And I am also fine floating wherever. So I guess a little bit about me. My background is in architecture. So I'm naturally interested in the built environment and the health and safety of the community. And so with that, I gravitate towards the watershed, just because I think that restoration project is really interesting and can use some education or awareness. But I'm also really interested in the pool and road. So happy to float wherever. I know we're a little bit lopsided now.
Well, we have some absent members. So was there anybody that I didn't call on? Great. Okay. Well, this was really helpful to see where everybody was most passionate about, and I appreciate everybody sharing their expertise and also where you can be most flexible. So the plan will be that we will the 3 small group leaders, myself, Dana, and Kim, will reach out to you within a couple days, and we will plan to plan a meeting time for everyone to meet outside of here. And then we'll begin the discussions, which will be presented at the next session. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Huel, who is going to discuss the floodplain.
Hi there. So I'm going to be super brief. There should be 2 maps that are included in your packets. It'll look like it's got it's a screenshot from a GIS system. So FEMA recently updated their floodplain and floodway maps. And so there is a slight change happening on the Grabhorn property. The 100-year floodplain is actually decreasing. And so you'll see a small section there that's outlined in red and has a comment in red there. So that bit is actually being removed. And again, the GIS system doesn't reflect that because we haven't, I mean, the new maps have not been updated in our system yet. As far as how that extends down onto the Veterans Park side of that fence, I'm not quite sure, but oh yeah, no, you can see it there on the first aerial. Sorry, I was expecting the 2 to be reversed, Isaac. No worries. That's about all the update I have. I mean, more of that property coming out of the floodplain is obviously good news, but I'm not sure, you know, if it has a super significant impact on the property. That's about all I've got. If you do have any other specific questions about the floodplain, I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Thanks, Huel. It was just recently brought to our attention that that was changing, so we wanted to make sure that those changes to any maps that you might have are being addressed, just in case anybody had questions or concerns about it. The next, Isaac now is going to take over and speak to best practices, which is research that he has done to assist us in making sure that at all times we are thinking about all the things that we need to have in mind while we are developing this park.
So in January, City Council asked for the city staff to provide some research into best practices in terms of park development. The goal being to make sure that we take an evidence-based approach to making sure that whatever comes out is based in good research. What I found was that really best practices in parks development comes into 2 different buckets. The first bucket is the process. So that would be part of what we're doing right now. We've been doing since far before the Grabhorn property was purchased, which is a robust process. It's a little different for every community, but basically it's how you go from an idea of a park all the way through to implementation and creation of the park. So it's more about how do you do that than how do you choose an amenity, what's the best amenity for a community, et cetera. The other bucket things drop into in terms of best practices are best practices in design elements. So placemaking, accessible play structures, you know, having healthy or, you know, physical activities be integrated into play structures. How do you create a park that has a nice walkway? Is it a straight walkway to feel like a greenway? Do you want it to curve along a creek more naturally? All of these are very contextual dependent. It depends on what your park is, where it's located, to determine what factors would be best practice for a particular park. And that really was the crux of the research that I found, was that every park is different. And really the best practice for a park is really dependent on the community. So it's dependent on the needs of the community. It's dependent on the park, where the park is at, where it's located. Factors like, is there a creek or a stream? Is it, you know, open land? Is it, you know, what kinds of things can you put there? And most of that is contextual. It's about what's right for the community, what's right for the park. And so those are kinds of things that, you know, you could evaluate. You could choose to evaluate those items as a committee or in your smaller subcommittees. And as you go through your process, I would imagine that certain features will come out. So for example, it is not illogical to think that the watershed group will find that a meandering path along the creek, it's a lot of buckets, right? It fills out, maybe it fills a need for engaging with the natural environment and bringing awareness to the state of the watershed, as well as providing recreation and, you know, soft surface paths for, you know, people who maybe can't walk on a paved path. And as you go through the process, really in the research that was provided, there's a lot of references, and I'm imagining that as you note things, you could click on those links or do some outside research and find more best practices for whatever comes up. So just to kind of recap, there's not really one best practice for developing a park. It's going to be defined a lot by what you all work on in the next couple of weeks as you start your groups and find out and evaluate what's right for this community in this point in time.
Thank you. And also, I just wanted to let everyone know that this Isaac's full report, it was available within the email that he sent out with links. So it's a great resource. There's lots of extra links in there, extra information and research, should you like to review it. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left, where I'd like to open it up to general discussion. I do like, as I mentioned last time, I do like to stay on time. So if people have questions, comments, things that they want to make sure are addressed or seen within the small groups or at the next meeting, now is the time to have that conversation. Rocky, go ahead.
So help me understand a little bit about when a members miss a meeting, how that works. So are you able to send in stuff ahead of time if you have input? All the alternatives, are other people standing by to fill a spot? I noticed, maybe somebody misses a couple meetings now. How does that work?
So are you asking are you asking if we want to receive feedback from you guys, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, so if there's somebody that misses a meeting that's upcoming, that's not going to be a part of it, is somebody filling in our space for that meeting? Is it just, we're just missing that person for the meeting? I heard there was, people that were alternatives to help, alternates, I mean, to help.
I'll go ahead and take that. Yeah, the SPRC has alternates who are seated for their committee to fill those roles. So typically, when votes happen, you have to have a quorum, and the role of the alternate is to fill in those positions to make sure that there are enough voting members to cast a vote. In the event that somebody misses the meeting, if they want to provide feedback, they can do that directly to the group, and we could present that as public comment at the meeting, in the meeting packet. So for example, if you meet with your group and you have some research you'd like to share, you can send it on to Huel or myself, and we'll provide that in the meeting packet for everybody, even if you are unable to make the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else who'd like to speak? Kevin, go ahead.
So with that, you just mentioned that if we find research that we'd like to share, we can forward it on to Huel or, sorry, was it Isaac talking?
Yes.
Yeah, and they'd be able to share it. One of the questions I had is how, I know there's a specific number of people that can technically meet in person before a quorum is established, and then that body can't actually meet.
Correct.
And right, that's correct, right? So I'm just wondering if I'm just looking at the timeline of what we're trying to do. It seems very tight. If we did want to, meet on the side or have individual conversations with others to, brainstorm, how would we do that? Do we always need to maintain a quorum, or is it the preference that we meet in smaller groups where that's not necessarily required?
So in answer to your question, up to 7 members can meet without this being a public meeting. So for example, if you and your smaller group of 5 or 6 or 7 members want to meet for socially distanced gathering in the park or a couple people for coffee, you are more than free to do that without calling a public meeting. If a group of 8 or more people meets, it becomes a public meeting. We have to have a public process. So as long as groups are 7 or less, you're free to meet at your will.
Perfect. And I guess a follow-up question to that then is, once we're assigned to these groups, is there a rotation that happens, or how do we cross-pollinate? Is that primarily this gathering that happens, or when does that occur?
It would the way I'm seeing it at this point is that it would primarily be at these meetings that we would begin to share those ideas. But again, we are trailblazing here. This is so if it eventually needs to morph into something different, as long as we are all in agreement, then I think that is perfectly acceptable. Initially, I would like to have the small groups stay where they are at so that we can get the bulk of the information accessible and on so that we have the necessary information available for the decisions that we need to make. But as time goes on, we may need to begin to shift our groups a little bit to have different input.
Great,
Jim?
thank you.
Yeah, referencing back to the session for public comment, I would like to recommend that the committee at some point figure out a time for that early in the process. That'll avoid a lot of people coming in with questions that have been answered a month ago as the process goes on, that kind of thing. So I would suggest that establishing a date for that session takes some degree of priority.
Absolutely. That's a great suggestion.
Actually, Kara, on that note, this is Huel speaking. There could be like a doodle poll or something we could send out to the entire committee, and everybody kind of stick some input in there to what they want to vote, and then we will make that happen by setting up and figuring out how we would do that sort of forum.
Okay.
But I totally agree with you, Jim. We should figure that out as a committee early on, so we can plan for it appropriately.
Yeah. So sending, I think something out like that would be fantastic. So we can.
Isaac and I will put something like that together early next week and send it out to the committee.
Perfect. Thank you. Dana, go ahead.
Hi, this is Dana from the Watershed Council and also the committee. I guess I'm still just not clear on, so we're gonna do small groups. Are we each coming up with sort of a design or a list? Or, yeah, just kind of wondering if we can clarify what the overall process will be for commenting on each of the things the other committees or groups finds, and how we are actually going to get to a design for the park, or are we just giving them a list of amenities?
So initially, when we're beginning our small groups, we are digging deep and finding out the needs and the parameters of those things within the needs to see if they are feasible and fit within the desires of the community. So that at this point is the first step. And then we're going to report back to that at the next meeting. The ultimate goal will be to have 2 different presentations for the city council. And we will present our first findings in June and then our second findings in July. And so as we go along, we will, based off of the things that we learn, we will begin to build a concept that we would like to see, both without a pool and without a pool. So that's just the beginning. It's ultimately just the beginning stage, because right now we need to really get the research. So for example, Kim sent me an outline of where she plans to start with her small group. So number 1, looking at the interconnectivity needs, doing their due diligence, digging deeper into the city planners and the transportation safety plan, communicating with emergency services, looking at the surrounding community just beginning those kind of questions so that we can have an understanding of the impacts of the pool and the road. So those are just the first steps that we're just beginning with, and then that will grow within each meeting. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay. Jim, did you have another question? Okay.
This is Yul again. I just have one more an announcement. If you haven't already taken the pool cost survey, that is still live. The deadline for that is June 3rd. To date, it looks like we've received about 300 responses. Once we hit about 350 to 375 responses, that's a relatively good sample size for our community. So if you do know folks who haven't taken it, please encourage them to do so. And those results will be shared with council likely later in July. I know they've got a pretty busy docket in June and July with budget upon us. But at the very latest, early August on presenting those results to City Council. Yes, so the survey is available. Well, it's coming out in the newsletter. So we're doing another run in the newsletter. We have it up on the city website. It's on the city app. And what I can go ahead and do is Isaac and I will go ahead and share the link with the committee again, so you can share it on social media, send it to friends, family, and anybody who might not have taken it yet.
Great, thank you, Yul. All right, I don't have any more hands raised. I do want to reach out if people do have suggestions, thoughts, concerns, questions. You're more than welcome to reach out to me as well, and then I'm happy to either address them through email or add them to the agenda, or ask Isaac and Huel to add it to the agenda. But I just want to put that out there so people feel like they have the opportunity to communicate outside of here. And with that, it is 7 o'clock. So let's adjourn for the night. All right, everyone, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night, all.
Thank
Good
you.